Hey everyone, Evan Kirstel. Good morning. Happy Monday. Today I have a fantastic topic and guest, Mark Sage, a director of the AREA.org. Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning to you.
Nothing like four-letter acronyms to start the morning. But tell us, what is the AREA, the Augmented Reality for Enterprise Alliance? And maybe introduce yourself to our audience here.
Yes, thank you very much, Evan. Yeah, so we kind of pronounce it as the area, and as you said, it's an augmented reality enterprise alliance, global not-for-profit organization helping really companies to successfully deploy AR technology. So we have the kind of members, sorry, we're in three different groups. We have the companies that are actually deploying augmented reality. So the likes of Boeing, Newport News Shipbuilding, Welsh Water, and there's a whole bunch of others. We have a group of the providers of the technology. So there's the kind of hardware providers, the Magic Leaps, Microsoft's, RealWares, and a whole bunch of others, and the software providers as well. And then we have a third group, which we kind of put into what we call non-commercial organizations, but the likes of government agencies, research institutes, universities, standards organizations. So it's really about bringing them all together to kind of help learn from each other, to help develop that best practice, to kind of communicate the benefits of the technology, and also helping overcome some of the challenges.
Well, it sounds like an amazing ecosystem that you and the team have built. Tell us about your journey into building Area. Um, we have a similar background in terms of telecom and mobile, where I think we're both hardcore geeks. But yeah, tell us how your journey led to Area.
Yeah, and I think just the kind of latter part, I spent 15 years at Orange, which is one of the mobile operators that are very strong in Europe and in some of the African countries, doing a whole variety of kind of product development, application development, but ended that kind of journey looking at some of the platforms, which included Android. So we actually launched the first Android phone in the UK and in France, the iOS, the Apple guys. And the last
Mhm.
part of that was really looking at kind of more of an open source platform, and then working with kind of companies around the world again to kind of create an alliance to bring these different companies together to drive the development of the platform. It was called Tizen. So actually understanding and enjoying that kind of opportunity to bring diverse companies, diverse people together, really kind of allowed me to, yeah, enjoy that process, to learn quite a bit. I left Orange and kind of did some of my own startups in a variety of different fields, but yeah, was kind of asked back to lead the organization. Crikey, I think back in 2016. So it's been a few years actually working with the AIR and its members, which I have to say has been fantastic and really enjoyable.
Yeah, it's really a who's who of players in technology. When did augmented reality start to creep into your consciousness as a really interesting, compelling, and real opportunity? How early can we go back here in
Well,
terms of AR?
and it's a great question. We go back to the very start of it. The actual term was coined by Boeing back in 1989. So when I
That is
kind of
way
first,
back.
that is way back, yeah. And I have to say, I wasn't kind of interested or understanding the technology, but I think being in the mobile space, the operators and all of the mobile ecosystem are looking at kind of what we do next. Um, the kind of 4G, 5G, how do you enable services and applications? So back in my Orange days, it was something that was beginning to come more to the fore. I think things like VR is often talked about, and it's a great kind of technology, but actually augmented reality, as you hopefully know, still allows you to see the real world. So in kind of industrial environments, when you're either trying to fix something or provide the information, it's a great technology to do it. So it was probably at the end of my Orange days, and as I started to look at the different startups and innovation there, but really smack bang when I joined the area, you could see there were some members already there that were beginning to get a return on investment with the technology. So from then I'd fallen in love with it. I think there's still so much more we can do and will do. But I also think from an enterprise perspective, or even from a terminology, things like metaverse and other terms sometimes causes a little bit of confusion in the ecosystem, or certainly for people that are not actively involved in the technology all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we seem to have these two tracks. There's the, consumer track of mainstream understanding, adoption, and interest, and then the industrial sort of B2B side of the opportunity. Are these completely dissociated, or will they converge at some point? Because if I ask my mother about augmented reality, I'll get a kind of curious stare.
Well, and it's a couple of great answers. Just to kind of before I go into that into a bit more depth, it's actually the flip side of what's happened in the mobile space. As you
Mhm.
well know, having gone through that, it's in the mobile space, it was the consumer, and then eventually we kind of found use cases in the industrial bit. We flipped, and you see there's a lot more focus on the industrial side for a number of different reasons. And I think some of that's to do with cost, but also the kind of compelling use cases. Um, I think I can't remember what the question there was, Evan. I was coming to a little bit on that, but
Well, I was really looking at the consumer versus the
yes,
industry side, and there's so many obvious, compelling use cases on the enterprise side, whether it's in healthcare or on the manufacturing line or on oil rigs. I mean, they're repairing gear. I mean, the ROI is just so obvious. Not so obvious on the I'm sorry, on the consumer
on the
side,
consumer
right?
side. Yeah, no, and I kind of agree. I think a bit like maybe kind of the wearable devices when they first come in, the watches. It took time to work out what the best use cases are and the best benefits. I think on the consumer side, and I've seen some devices that kind of fluttered in the marketplace, and things like being able to see your notifications from just using a pair of wearables, pair of glasses, to I don't know, step-by-step guides for navigation and things like that. So I think there needs to be a few more developments in that from a use case perspective. But I think ultimately it's down to the kind of form factor as well. People don't want to be walking around with great big things on their head, looking slightly alien and stuff like that. So, it will be, I think, a case is the power, the field of view, and the weight and comfortableness of it gets better, then I'm sure we'll see an explosion into the consumer space, but we're not quite there at this moment.
Yeah, we had the infamous Google Glass experiment or product that was, I'm not sure if that was a step forward or a step backwards. It certainly generated a lot of interest, controversy, and we haven't seen like a Google Glass 2.0. So what are you most excited about in area? Like, what are some of the companies or trends or applications that are really interesting to you and the ecosystem?
Well, I think we saw an explosion in the COVID pandemic. And again,
Mm.
so kind of, I say simple, they're not simple, but the kind of being able to support workers who are still in the manufacturing or the space where they need to do some work, but they can't have a helper or someone to be able to show them what to do. So being able to call and speak and be shown through kind of digital content, speak to anybody in the world to fix problems, reduce that amount of downtime and allow these organizations to keep working. And certainly in some of the kind of pharmaceutical and medical use cases as well, that allowed them to keep working in what was really difficult times, with reduced staff, but with still the same efficiency. So I think that was the kind of the really start of some of the great use cases. I think what we need to do now, and as we get more and more intelligent in terms of looking at the content, things like being able to check that a task has been done completely and correctly first time. So the kind of compliance use cases are something that we're seeing more and more now. Um, Things like collaboration, design collaboration can be done with different people from anywhere in the world. You can imagine the kind of time savings, the CO2 savings, and things like that. So, I think in the shorter term, those kind of use cases will come to the front. We'll continue and see innovation within the hardware, and that will range from the devices, as I said, probably getting lighter, bigger field of view. Hopefully, the cost will come down. And even to the stage now where we'll see some companies that are really leading edge, that they're doing it with contact lenses and stuff like that. So So I think, the technology needs to improve. As 5G continues to advance, the connectivity gets better, meaning we can actually stream bigger models as well. And I think just finding a place where, those end workers can get the information what they need in a way that they can do it so they can stay hands-free and really increase their efficiency and performance and stuff like that. So I think, companies will need to do this. I think not only as the workforce gets older, which it is doing, it's about taking that information, capturing it using AR. And then as the younger people come into these organizations, they want to work with this type of technology. It's for them, it's kind of cool, or they're even used to it. So yeah, I think there's going to be a whole bunch of really exciting advancements with the technology over the coming months and years.
Yeah, advancements are, we literally see new advancements every day. Indeed, our friend Tim Apple, he talks about, AR being one of the most, fundamental new technologies on the horizon, sort of hinting at Apple glasses.
Hmm.
Is that what we really need to push things forward? Is a unicorn device like Apple glasses? Or are we just chasing a dream here? I'm getting a little impatient myself for something from Apple. What say you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think anything that drives forward, there are, people, there's billions of phones out there that you can do AR with now, but you're kind
Mhm.
of still holding on to things. I do think we need be a unicorn. It may be an Apple. It could be some device providers and things like that in technology kind of pushing all the time. So yeah, I think the improvements in the hardware, as I said, both from a safety perspective as well, but from the use case, the performance, the weight, all of those things. So fingers crossed. It may be Apple, it may be somebody else, but improvements in this kind of technology will help the ecosystem. It definitely will.
And speaking of the ecosystem and your ecosystem at Area, so what do you actually do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? What are some of the activities and working groups and initiatives that you undertake?
Yeah, thank you. We have a number of, we call it committees, working groups, and give it any
Hmm.
kind of name, but it's looking often at some of the barriers to adoption. So we have focusing on things like safety, and that's obviously implementing AR safety, but using AR for safety matters as well. Security, there's a big concern from, and quite rightly, for organizations out there, using all these different sensors on these devices to collect information that could have IP or something which is really important to that company. We're actually creating a global set of requirements. One of the challenges of companies that want to deploy AR is, where do they start? And often it's about, when they come up with an idea of a use case, they need to create a set of requirements. Well, often if they have to do it from scratch, it takes a long time. So we're creating these requirements from a hardware and software perspective that these companies can then use. We have a human factors committee. So we're looking at some of the kind of UX and UI, not just from a kind of a usability perspective, but the things like weight, field of view, and those kind of parts. We also have a marketing committee, which is about promoting the ecosystem. I think one of the big um, benefits and where we see lots of information coming from is our research committee. So it's a
Hmm.
really simple process. We say every 6 months, hey, members, what would you like to research? What information would help you? So it's very applied information. They literally do an online form. We then have a meeting where that proposer can explain what the research is and what the benefits were, or sorry, can be. And then when that's finished, the area members get to vote. So when that voting, we have the top one, the area then funds and pays for that kind of research. It's a really great way of getting applied, unique research that helps those companies. And we've done a whole bunch of things ranging from security to an ROI calculator to stuff on technology like WebAR, to actually looking at some of the human aspects when it comes to change management, 5G and AR. It's a whole, we've been doing this for over 5 years. So there's kind of 10 research projects with two in development as
Wow.
well. Yeah, so it's a real kind of place where you can really get into the detail and understand some of the key parts. And you know, I think the other thing around the research committee does is looking at the interoperability and standards as well. Now, the area is not a standards organization, but we do work with lots of them, and they often come to the area because of its members and say, hey, what should we be focusing on as well? So I think, to summarize it, anything we can do to help companies understand the benefits and also successfully deploy the technology helps them as providers of helps them as implementers of the technology, but also providers of the technology as well. And everybody wins when we see more successful implementations.
Win-win indeed. And you
Mm.
participate in a lot of events. You host a lot of events. Any particular ones on the radar that people might be interested in?
Yeah, we certainly the area. Now we're back to actually meeting face to face. It's one of those slightly strange and ironic bits that actually, to really understand it, you need to experience AR. And that sounds a little bit strange, but once you can kind of see the eureka moment when they put the device on their head and go, wow, so that's what it is. And I can do this. And in fact, what you normally get is a whole bunch of, can I do this? Can I do that? Type situation. So we run events. We have a particular kind of niche, we think, in when it comes to those bits where we want people. Not only do we do lots of demonstrations of, the providers demonstrate, we do kind of thought leadership presentations, but we also do lots of kind of workshop sessions. So the area's created a lot of content, like how do you develop a use case in AR? Some of the security and safety stuff, we have different infographics and models. So it's a real opportunity for kind of end users to come and sit down with their peers, or even with companies that haven't even started on their journey. And we will take them through how you develop a use case. So they're asking questions, they're getting information from each other, they're really kind of diving into the detailed part of it, and they come away with a much better understanding. So yeah, we run one in the UK in September. Next year we plan to run one in Europe in Q1, in US Q2, I should say the UK, not Europe, UK in Q3, and back into the US in Q4. So lots of those kind of events, but also there's some other amazing events that go on around the world, and I've been lucky to, speak at, moderate panels, chair kind of sessions. Augmented Enterprise Expo, no, it's augmented, yes, Augmented Enterprise Summit is a great one, AWE, but there's also lots of others. And I think, the more we can get out there and talk about the benefits of augmented reality and how it really helps enterprises, it's great for everybody. And thank you for taking the opportunity today for allowing me to talk a little bit about that as well.
Oh yeah, no, my pleasure. It's been fascinating learning about your mission. Um, what about Mobile World Congress? I know I'll be there in Barcelona. Been going for like 15 years. CES, I mean a consumer show, but there's a lot of innovation coming out. Any interest in those two big global events?
And I've been to both of those. I would say
Mhm.
MWC probably more with my mobile hat on. There is more and more AR going there. So yeah, I think, and I've been to CES and see some of the innovation. There's also another really great one, kind of IoT World Solutions Congress that's going to be happening in Barcelona as well. So
Mhm.
they're great. There's lots of great events. I think and as you probably know, you have to be a little bit picky on which ones you go to, just because you can't spend all your life traveling around in an airplane. But these are all great events. I'd like to see I like the events where there's more focus on AR or immersive technology, AR and VR, because it's important to get the right companies there and the right end users who are really interested in this technology. And I think there's some great events, and I think also the area is trying to focus on some industry events as well, so going to evangelize and educate companies, because like you said, many people don't know about it. Whilst they might have experienced AR in a variety of different ways, I always use the simple one where if you're watching American football and you see the 10-yard line, the yellow 10 line, that is an example of augmented reality. That line is not there. That is digital
Right.
content put on top of the real world. Okay, it's simple, but people kind of get, oh yeah, I kind of understand it a little bit now. A bit like reversing. If you have a kind of camera and it shows you the way to go, that's not actually there, but that's putting a digital overlay on top of the real world. So there's some nice, easy kind of starters that people begin to understand, and then when they actually see it in a industrial context, and you're getting that relevant contextual information to the end users when they need it, that's when the kind of eureka moment comes out and goes, so now I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what you mentioned VR. What say you about VR? Are you like, oh, those guys are a bunch of losers. We're the future. What's
Never. But
I'm
but
kidding.
but I could have
What's your take
said
on
it
the
nicer.
VR
No,
ecosystem?
and VR VR is great. I think there are particular use cases, certainly in the enterprise space, that it's really great for. And I always use the analogy that, perish the thought that ever a nuclear power station was going into some sort of meltdown. I would much rather experience that in VR than in real life, or try to be trained on it. So it's certainly in the training use case, has some great uses. I love the other one that a company did and showed me recently about heights. And I'm not a big fan of heights. Actually, doing heights in VR was slightly better than being put up on a bigger, on a high building and stuff like that. So it has its places, and it's great for getting people kind of an introduction to some of the training environments and things like that. I think there's also some great things about visualizing and designing things at the early stage. Where I'd love to get to the stage is where, hey, you could do some design in VR, then that whatever it is actually built, and then you're using that same digital content. And often people talk about digital twins, but using the same content to now use AR to actually build that, so you can see the instructions and what to do to build it. Then you're using AR to maintain that over a kind of a period of time. So if anything breaks down, you still have that digital content that can help you solve the problems and make sure everything's running okay. And then, if need be, you can decommission that whatever it is, building, engine, piece of equipment. And again, AR can help you do that. So there's definitely a kind of a life cycle opportunity here, using immersive technology in its different forms and keeping that digital kind of footprint up together. And it will save time. You may be in situations yourself, you see people trying to get diagrams out that are obviously quite old, and opening them up and trying to look at things and stuff like that. The future we won't be doing using that kind of
Yeah,
paper.
there's so many augmented reality use cases I've seen firsthand, whether it's some of the realtor applications experiencing, a space, a house that might be on show, or e-commerce, looking at products in your own room or your own house before they arrive. And of course, gaming. Anyone with kids knows about Pokemon.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the future looks bright. Well, thanks so much for joining and sharing your vision and your mission. And we look forward to following you guys and participating in the ecosystem.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks for the great work you do kind of talking about and promoting this. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Take care. Chat to you soon.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Goodbye.